Greetings, artists and art supporters. Hannah Duncan here from the Arts Council of Henderson County. I wanted to thank you for tuning in to our virtual show and walk you quickly through how the show will work. On September 26th and 27th, the show will begin both days at 11 a.m. You can watch the main show from our YouTube page, the Arts Council of Henderson County Facebook page, or our website, www.artonmainNC.com. At 1 p.m., you can join our artists in the virtual showrooms simply by clicking a link that will be provided and posted on our website, through an email, and posted on our social media pages. The showroom is essentially one giant Zoom room where you can meet each artist in a breakout room. At 4 p.m., the virtual showrooms will close and you can join us back on our YouTube page, the Arts Council of Henderson County Facebook page, or our website, www.artonmainNC.com, for the rest of the show. This will be the schedule for both days of the event. Make sure that you tune in on Sunday morning to see the award ceremony and take some time to explore the virtual gallery to get a taste of what the artists create. Spend a little bit more time exploring our artist pages and click on the artist website links to see what work they have available to purchase. The Arts Council of Henderson County is a nonprofit community organization that promotes, advocates for, and nurtures the arts in Henderson County and Western North Carolina. Your tax-deductible donations help our organization provide programs that keep our community creative. If you are enjoying the show, we ask that you first make sure to support our artists by buying their work. And if you feel inclined to do so, we would greatly appreciate the support to help us continue our mission. Thank you again for supporting the arts, and stay creative.
Welcome to Day 2 of Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. I'm back today at Woodlands Gallery in historic downtown Hendersonville. Today we will kick off the show by announcing the winners of 2020. I want to take a moment to congratulate all of the participating artists in Art on Main. Each artist has spent years perfecting their craft, and because of their expertise, they were selected for this show. Many of us enjoy walking around fairs and festivals like Art on Main, but never truly understand the work that goes into it. The long hours of trial and error as an artist perfects their style, the years of training, and the months of preparation for the shows they travel to each weekend. What we see are beautifully crafted pieces in a booth, but artists are entrepreneurs, customer support, roadies, marketers, and more. To the artists in the show, thank you for your dedication to your craft and for making festivals like Art on Main possible. The world is better because we have creative and innovative minds like yours in it. Now for the moment we have all been waiting for. I would like to hand the virtual mic over to our special guest to announce the winners of this year's Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair.
Thank you to our 2020 Art on Main judges. Katie Gia, Joyce Zavaskis, Patrick Dennis. Now please welcome our 2020 Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair presenter, actress Judy Greer.
Honorable Mention Awards: Fine Art, Diane Dean, Acrylic. Fine Craft, Jim Norton Jewelry. Most Original, Janet Lesenby, Pottery. First Time, Deb Major, Mixed Media. Second place, Fine Art, Brian Keene, Pastels. Second place, Craft, Stuart Glassman, Pottery. First place, Fine Craft, Roberto Bengoechea Jewelry. First place, Fine Art, Walter Arnold Photography. Best of Show, Jamie Whitcliffe Glass. Congratulations to everybody.
I am Kendra Runnels. I'm originally from Ohio, and I went to college in Savannah, Georgia, to the Savannah College of Art and Design. I did not major in painting or any sort of fine art. I did graphic design, but I knew I wanted to be around the arts, so that's why I chose to go to an art college. And I now live in Augusta, Georgia. It's where my husband is from. We have two little girls, 5 and almost 4. A friend of mine's mother bought me 3 canvases just because she thought I might want to be creative and paint something. I was living in the Charlotte, North Carolina area at the time, and so I painted this series of 3 random gecko paintings and took them to a gallery to see if they would actually sell them, and they sold, and that's where it all began. I do collage pages from old books. I don't actually use newspapers, though. I've used like scans of clippings from newspapers in the past, but I like it because it goes with the whole monochromatic, background, and then the pops of color. The pops of color are meant to represent hope in my work. I just have a love for the rain. And I know that seems crazy. I'm not from like Seattle or the Northwest, like so many people ask me. I am from Ohio, though. And I feel like Ohio is a very cloudy, dreary state. And in the South, it's sunny a lot more. And so I think I find myself missing just the rain sometimes. And so that came out very early on in my work. And also I do love, I love the rain. I don't mind getting wet when it's raining outside. Like I love the outdoors. Yeah, so I feel like there's something about that gives new life when it rains and hope. So just that theme, it really resounds with the whole rain umbrella theme. I relate a lot with the lone girl. And I don't know if it has to do with this or just like, just me as a woman. I was single until I was 30. So I felt, and I also went on a mission trip. I wasn't alone, but I was single, and just this journey that we go through in life, kind of by ourselves, but alone, but not alone. I feel like we always have, God traveling with us wherever we go. And so the trains were really inspired, like the old trains, when I was in the European countries. And in fact, some of the other countries too, the trains, I feel like I was in the Twilight Zone in some of these old trains, like they were from, it felt like they were from like either the early 1900s, early 1800s, and it gave a sense of nostalgia, even though it wasn't nostalgia for my life. It felt like I was in someone else's world, and it was just a very unique world, and traveling around in these very unknown places. I have a few pieces like Wherever You Go or Wherever I May Go. And it's just like the idea of like that you're never really alone and in life, and when you are actually traveling. The way I do my pieces, I do plan most of my pieces heavily. So I know where I'm going to put the pages. I know what words I want to show through are going to be from the pages from old books. I know where each, in the bicycle, like umbrella pieces, like I know where each person is going to be standing. and just, the train images. But there's one floral that's like right here. I painted a few florals this spring and kind of like a new style. And I just sat down with my panel and did something a little bit different and just started painting flowers. And so kind of reversed my process a little bit just to see what happened and try to experiment. And they turned out really well. And I'm going to try to do that more organic painting more. But most of my work is planned. And the first step is I know I sketch out my piece and I know how everything is going to go. And I know where I'm going to put all my pages from books. And so I decoupage that down, and I use like Mod Podge to decoupage that down. And I coat over it with like a varnish. And then I do like my texture. I know where all my texture is going to go throughout the painting. And then, I gesso over that. And then I start the layers of color and doing my subject. And then just bring it to life with all the different layers of color. Finding joy is, I think, it's one of my signature pieces, but also it has that unique element of the girl standing, letting the rain fall on her. And the thing that stands out about it is just that idea. It's not just this abstract concept of hope, but she's like a visualization of that joy and hope that we're supposed to be focusing on. I just released my first ever collection online as an attempt to figure out the new world of selling only online. I've seen other artists do it where, 2 or 3 times a year, they'll release a collection. They'll make like 30 paintings in the collection and release that. So I really love to paint birds, and they lend themselves to some smaller pieces that are easier for people to collect and buy if they've never seen my artwork before. The entire series is called Among the Branches, just because it's birds, and also it's inspired by, and I guess this is the most important piece, by a Bible verse about how, God cares for the birds, and if God cares even for the birds, he's going to care for all of us as well. So, hey, I'm Kendra Runnels, and you can find my artwork at kendrastudios.com, and you can also follow me on Instagram at Kendra Studios.
I was born and raised in North Dakota, and so was my now wife, but we left there after high school and went to college in Denver, where I went to art school, and she went on to college, but we ended up getting married, and that's 40 years ago this year. So I'm showing my age, but yeah, we pretty much lived in Colorado a long time. We've lived all over the country a little bit, but we ended up here in Western North Carolina about 15 years ago. Bought a beautiful place here with a nice studio that's in the woods, so it's perfect for what we're doing. I did illustration as well during my career. I did a lot of computer illustration. I started doing pastels back in art school, and I kept with them for years. I didn't really sell them, but then a few years before I retired from design, I started doing shows, so I was doing both at the same time. And then it just became a natural switch to just focus on fine art completely. And I'm just drawn to those images, the old black and white photos that we all see from the 30s, and the expressions on people's faces. And, there's just a big story there, but you don't know what it is. And since they're old black and white photos, it even looks more dreary, I think, than it probably really was. But it was depression. Of course, there was hardships, and that's what inspires me. I just try to capture that essence of it, even though I'm not copying these photos that I find, 100%. I just take the characters and put them in my own backgrounds and stuff, and just try to bring some life to that. I've always been really into color. I use a lot of color, so I'm never concerned to be, accurate with the color necessarily. I'm just trying to create a mood, create an image with that. And even if it's surreal color, it changes the concept of the photo 100%. I also work on a black paper to start with. So when you start putting color on the black surface, something amazing happens. And it's just, you add a second color to that color, and you just start playing with, oranges and reds to me are the most brilliant. They just make a statement. So that's what and I use black too. So, there's a big contrast there. But I start out literally by on the computer. I look up, I research old photographs. The Library of Congress is a great database. They have just millions of images, from the 1930s where they're all, royalty free, not, no domain on them. So, and when I find an image I like, I put it in a folder and I come back to them eventually. When I want to do a new painting, I just kind of go find another image, and then I decide if it looks better as a vertical or horizontal, and then I really do work up a composition to size, on the drawing table first. And once I have that, that's what I start with. And then preparing the paper is a whole thing for me too, because I start with a white illustration board, and I actually apply a black gesso to it that has sand in it. So it becomes a very textured surface to hold the pastel. And the beauty of that, I love working on black because it makes all the colors pop, but it also, as soon as you put the pastel on, these brush strokes start showing through that I put the primer on with. So it's just a technique that I've developed, and it really enhances, I think the art, especially the older looking images I'm doing, it just kind of lends itself to that. That's kind of the process. Yeah, you just have to, literally layer the colors. I work vertically so the dust can fall down into a tray. Pastels are a messy medium until you're done. But yeah, that's about it. And sometimes you don't know when you're done. You have to work. You can't overwork pastels. I guess that's the beauty thing of it. When they're done, they're done. A lot of people haven't owned a pastel before. I think they should really give it a good look, because there's something special about the medium. There are qualities to it that you just cannot get with paint. Although it is like paint, but it's so much like drawing and everything else. But I think, that's it. There's pastels I've seen from the 1800s that are still in great condition. So, some people think they might not be permanent because they're chalk basically, but they're very expensive chalk and they're made very well. So they're just like oil paints, really. Since I do these old images from the 30s, I've had more than one person in my booth that has actually started crying when they looked at a piece, because it reminded them of their grandmother who had just passed away, and she worked on a farm like that, or she had an old photo of her grandmother hoeing a garden or something, and in a couple of instances, they ended up buying the piece, never intending to buy a piece, but it just touched a nerve with them, and that's a really good feeling. Hey everybody, that's Brian Keane, a pastel artist. You can come see my work at www.briankeenstudio.com. That's Kuehn.
I am from Michigan originally. I did go to art school. I also went to engineering school, which is how I got such a design-oriented artistic bent. So I was doing watercolors for some years. I did watercolor mandalas. People kept coming by my booths at festivals and saying, "Oh, do you do barn quilts?" And quite frankly, initially I was kind of insulted. And I thought, this is fine art. Of course I don't do barn quilts. And after a couple years of that, it finally started sinking through my thick skull that maybe I should be doing barn quilts. And so I started painting barn quilts. I did a lot of research. I always do a lot of research into whatever art I'm doing to make sure that it is quality that is going to last. A barn quilt in its purest form is 8 foot by 8 foot, which is huge when you think about it. It's 2 pieces of plywood, actually, and with a design usually of one quilt block, which has been painted with exterior house paints on plywood in most cases, and then attached to the side of a big barn. That's why it's 8x8, is because they use the 8x8s on the big barns. And you probably, if you haven't seen them, if you watch this interview, you probably will notice some on your travels now that you've heard of them. And you'll say, oh, that's what that lady was talking about. When it started, they used, and still do use actually, maybe mom's favorite quilt square, and would paint them directly onto the side of the barn. And the problem with that, of course, is that it ages just like the red paint on a barn ages. And so somewhere along the line, I'm not sure if anybody knows exactly when, they started putting them on plywood with many, many coats of paint on a fresh, brand new, non-weathered plywood so that they would last longer. I actually put mine on what's called HDU board, which stands for high density urethane. And it's a man-made material. It's an inch thick, and it is guaranteed to not warp, split, peel, etc., etc. It will never rot. It's more permanent even than the best plywood that you can get, because even in the best plywood, as many coats of paint as you can put on it, eventually is going to split down between the plies. A lot of people are putting them on their sheds. That's why 2x2 is very popular. They put them on their garden sheds. They put them on their garages. They put them on maybe their fence that goes across their front porch, the little fencing that goes across the front porch. They'll put it on the front of that. So 2x2 is a very popular size. 3x3 is the next popular size. And if you would like to, you can pick out your own design and your own colors. One thing that's nice about barn quilts is that you can choose your own design and your own colors, and that includes anything from, for example, I have a book of designs. People bring in photos of designs that they've seen elsewhere that they really liked, or you might have a quilt that's a family heirloom that was your mother's or your grandmother's or your great-grandmother's even. And you can take a photo of that, and I can always translate. If I have never met one that I could not translate into how it was actually put together, because it's geometry, it's math. Engineering and art are really not that far apart in my mind, but it's been 45 years that I've been in both the engineering and art worlds. So, of course, to me, it would seem like they're really like brother and sister. I can tell you what my most successful piece is, which is the sunflower, which is listed on this virtual gallery. That's the one that is the most popular. I think because it's bright, it's cheery, it brings cheer to people even in the middle of winter when it's hanging out on their fence or their shed or the corner of their house or wherever it may be. It's nice and cheery. Hi, my name is Sue Buck. I'm a lifetime artist in Asheville, North Carolina. I paint barn quilts, and my website is www.suebuckbarn.com.
Bethany Joy Adams is an Art on Main demonstrator. She is also an educator in Hendersonville. She is the director of art for the Boys and Girls Club of Henderson County. Bethany received her Bachelor's of Fine Art from Brevard College.
Hi, my name is Bethany and I am the artist behind Bethany Joy Art. I am a local artist here in Hendersonville, where I also serve as the art director at the Boys and Girls Club of Henderson County. So I create here in my home studio. I have so much fun creating for my online business. You can find my work at BethanyJoyArt.com. And I offer original paintings, prints of my paintings, hand-painted earrings, ornaments at Christmas time, and all sorts of fun things. I have also had the wonderful honor of teaching several classes, local workshops, and I have had the honor of painting a few bears for Barefoot on Main in the past, and I'm just so thankful for the Hendersonville community and how they support the arts. So today I will be demonstrating a simple sunflower painting sketch, and I hope you enjoy. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions about my process, and I would love to chat with you. So thank you so much for your support, and I hope you enjoy. Bye. Alright, so I thought it would be fun to demonstrate painting a sunflower today, kind of fallish. And so I'm going to start off using these aqua colors. There's also some neo colors, and I'm going to do my drawing in these. So I'm just going to sketch a quick little sunflower, kind of whimsical. Let's start with the middle of the sunflower. Like this, and I'm gonna color it in a little bit, but not all the way. And these are just like crayons when you're drawing with them. I'm gonna do my petals in this color, the gold ochre. I'm gonna do some petals here all around. Just filling in all those spaces with some petals. Color some of them in with this brighter yellow. Just a few of them. And then I'm going to draw a little leaf to the side. This is kind of a greenish blue color that I love. One more here. Okay, so this is my initial sketch, and then I'm just going to take a paintbrush and put some water on it and start to just brush over my sketch with the water, just quickly, not being too careful because I'm going to go in with acrylic paint soon and really add some more color and depth and texture to this quick sketch. So I'm just going over my sketch with some water, making it come to life. Can kind of mix some of that yellow in with this bluish green. Make some fun shades. Green in this relief. Really fun. Some yellow. Mix up a little lime green maybe. All right. Got a little bit more yellow to go over here. And then I'm going to start in with my acrylic. So I've got all of my acrylic paint that I'm going to use already on my palette. I just used a variety of different heavy body paints and some other acrylic paints. I've got some gold oxide, and I've just got all of those already laid out on my palette for me. And go with this brush, and I dry it off and start in with my acrylics. I am going to start with the middle, and I'm going to add some of this dark brown. And I'm also going to add some gold oxide, so I've got some different shades of brown in there, and I'm just kind of mixing it around. So I've got some different shades of brown for the center of my flower. I'll rinse my brush off and dry it off really good. And then I'm going to come in to the leaves and just add some different shades of green. Got this darker green, some light green, sometimes I even like to kind of smooth things out with my finger a little bit. So, a bit more light green. All right, and then I will dry my brush off and come in with the yellows for my petals. All right, as you can see, I have filled in all my petals with yellows and oranges. And then I actually mixed up some paint here, acrylic paint, with some extra water, and I'm just gonna come in and add a few splatters to make my sunflower extra whimsical and fun. Just a few. And then I am gonna add some little coral accents into my sunflower. Make it even more whimsical. And then I will come back in probably with some more shades of yellows and orange to blend it all in and finish up our colorful petals. All right, and now I'm going to add the final details. So I'm going to use this small brush and add a few little dashes across the leaves. Perhaps a few in the middle of the flower. gold oxide. Then I'm going to use this really skinny brush. And I'm going to dip it in some white paint. And I'm just going to go around and kind of outline my sketch, just lightly. I'm going to go around the middle of the flower, the petals. And I'm just doing a brief little outline. And once I have done my outline around all the petals and the middle and the leaves, I'm just going to use a mechanical pencil that doesn't have any lead in it. And I dip it into the white paint and I just add some white dots just to add some whimsical texture, a little bit more interest, kind of leads the eye around the piece. And I just do that in a couple of areas. I group the little dots together in a couple of areas on the flower. It's pretty fun too. Add a couple to the petals, just around, not every petal, just some of them. And then we're done. We've got a fun sunflower, whimsical and perfect for the beginning of fall. Thanks for joining.
A little bit about me. I am from Massachusetts. I live in Florida now. I have rescued 21 cats that live with me. So they help me with my artwork. I use them for inspiration. And my pieces are made with clay and fused glass, and most of them are on wood. I started working in college at an art gallery, and they had a window that faced west, so all of our prints would fade. And I'll show you one, hand-painted tiles, which don't fade in the sun. So I started putting my things in the window and I started selling them, and I've been doing it ever since. So I first roll out the pieces out of clay. So these have been fired bisque. And actually it goes this way. So this is how they start out. It's all white clay. And then I draw it on with pencil, and then I paint with underglazes. And so the finished product comes out like this. And sometimes I'll start where I'll cut it out of paper first, and then I'll use that as a template for my clay, and then the finished clay piece. And then I'll put them together, and everything is fired and glazed, and that's basically how I start. Most of my things are animals or whimsical. This is one that I did where it's got little bees, like honey dripper bees. So everything I do is just kind of fun, and I like nature, so I do a lot of underwater things since I live in Florida. And I don't know, I like abstract things too, so I do have kind of another side against the whimsy. But A lot of times I'll just sit down at night with a blank piece of paper and I just start doodling things and I can just come up with ideas. I'm not at a loss for ideas. It's just a matter of time. So a lot of times I'll paint at night after, like my go-to time is like from 10 o'clock to 4 in the morning. That's when I really like, because nobody calls you, there's no interruptions, the cats are asleep. I really like doing these little tiles, they're little hand-painted tiles. I did a series of little cats that had occupations. This one's a beach cat. I don't know, I guess the one I'm working on at the time is a favorite, but then I'm off to a new thing and then that one's important. So this one is the 5-star cat hotel. My cats were just doing some funny things one night and I came up with that. This is a fused glass mermaid. I like fused glass, but it's really expensive, so I stopped using it as much. I did a series of spirit people. This is the Spirit of Time. And I picked up old watches out of drawers and people gave me some and I made the hourglass out of fused glass, and then this part is clay and I paint with underglazes and then they're fired in the kiln. And then most of my pieces, I'll put them all, I paint the wood first and then I'll glue the pieces like this little dog. I'll glue these on here and then decorate around it with acrylics. And then these two were fused glass and clay. This one I thought was really cool. It's got copper pieces that I found in my studio, and I just really liked those colors. I do a series of masks. This one is with seashells. And then these were little ones that I did for Christmas. I've got ornaments and then these little mojos. I do custom ones. And then I do a lot of cats. I've started doing dogs because there's more dog people, it seems, in North Carolina than cat people. And this one was cat dreams. I was watching my cat sleep one night. So I was just thinking of all the things that they could possibly be dreaming of. And that's where that one came from. A lot of people will send me pictures of their animals. So, I mean, it's not animal portraiture, but I'll do, you know, like a tiger cat or black and white cat or whatever, or if they've got multiple animals, I'll do baby announcements and they'll have me put in, you know, some things about the parents and things that, you know, pets or whatever that they have. Most of the time people will send me pictures and I'll end up doing it on like a 6x6 tile. So it'll be something like this size. And I've done people that have taken or that live on the beach and go sit and drink wine on the beach and with their cats. And I've done stuff like that, or people that bring their dogs to the beach. Hi, my name is Debbie Hagstrom. I'm an artist from Ocala, Florida, and I have a website that I just started. It's dhartistandrescuecats.com.
Hello everyone, this is Mr. Science Guy here. Today, we're going to explore an area of science known as cryogenics. We're going to place a few strawberries, a racquetball, and a few marshmallows inside of our bucket of liquid nitrogen. Right now, our liquid nitrogen is getting our racquetball, our marshmallows, and our strawberries super cold. Now, we're going to remove those objects from our bucket, hit each object with a hammer, and then observe what happens. Be sure to catch future episodes by visiting our website, handsonwnc.org, our Facebook page, and our YouTube channel. consider making a $5 donation to our Science for Kids Fund by visiting handsonwnc.org. You can also donate by texting the word hands-on to the number 44321. Proceeds from this fund will help us make new and exciting science content for the show, in addition to helping us reopen the Children's Museum.
I am a resident of Kentucky, where I have lived all of my life. I live in a very rural area. It's a very beautiful rolling hill area. I feel very fortunate to live in such a beautiful place because I'm so in love with nature, and that has caused me to make the beautiful jewelry that I do. My husband and I have owned and operated a greenhouse business for 36 years, and we operate that 6 months out of the year. And then the other 6 months, we do arts and crafts shows. I began doing dried floral arrangements and really loved it. Did those arrangements. After the 15 years, I decided that I wanted to make jewelry. I had no clue about what to do or how to do anything relative to jewelry, let alone enameling. And we were in the Aramont bookstore in Gatlinburg about 12 or 13 years ago, and I seen the book. There was color on metal, and I was so excited. And I told my husband, I said, this is it. I have no clue how I would ever do any of this, but this is what I want to do. I had it in my mind from the beginning to do cloisonne. I was so excited just to see color on the metal, and I do more work with silver. Silver is so reflective. The glass is so reflective on the silver, and you get such a nice, rich look that I just love the silver, and I use fine silver. So the initial pieces were exciting because there was glass on metal. Had not developed really any true sense of design, but over the years, as I've been able to get some of this expression out of my soul onto the metal and the glass, and I've only touched the surface, and I can't wait, as years go by, and as long as God will give me the mind to do it, I want to do this work because I can even go places in my pieces. A lot of my pieces are designed on paper, out of my head to paper. It's sketched, and then there's so much work involved once you get to that point. Once the design is complete on the paper, then you've got to prepare your metal, and you've got to, cut those little bitty tiny cloisonne wires, and that goes onto the paper. And then from there, that is transferred to the metal once the piece is fluxed, which means that's a little thin layer of clear glass that is kiln fired to the metal. Then you start putting those little cloisonne wires onto that piece, and then from that you build your colors. And the neat thing about it is I love to grind my own glass. I could certainly buy glass that's already prepared from different places, but I think that's one of the neat things is grinding my glass, and I can control clarity by the particle size, how I grind it with mortar and pestle. It's washed, probably at least a half dozen times before it's ever used. And then it's applied with a little bitty tiny brush. And those little grains of glass are with your brush. It goes to the piece, and then that's fired. You don't feel all of your cloisonne wires with glass all in one firing. That's the neat thing. Sometimes I'll fire 20 layers of glass in a piece, and you get that beautiful depth of the color by doing it that way. There's so many different things that you do. It's an insane art, actually. It's a very action art, but wow, I think the results are fabulous. It's good for me. Once I apply the color, and the color after it's fired, if it satisfies me, then I will stop the color part of the glass, and then I will start applying flux, which is, as I mentioned before, it's a clear glass. So many layers of the flux go onto the piece, and then when the glass gets up to the top of those cloisonne, the sides of the cloisonne wires, then I'll know to stop. And then another process takes in, and that's got to be all ground down. It's got to be so smooth. So there's a lot of metalsmith work begins. So once that's done, it's ground down, and then you do a final firing, and then you've got to start your bezeling process, which is totally metalsmithing. It's a beautiful art, and I so enjoy the pieces that I make. Well, it's almost like, wow, I get to do this. I get to come down here and do this. This is, oh my gosh, this is great. And then the biggest thing is for someone to pick it up and say, this is so beautiful. I love this. I'd like to purchase this. That's the greatest compliment of all. And you're doing something right when you can do that. And my husband builds dulcimers, and we do the shows together. It's really a pretty wonderful life, and I feel so blessed. I thank God I know He has blessed me and my husband to do the work that we do. And we're not going to get rich, but we don't need to be. We live simply and live a very good life, I believe.
When I was about 10 years old, my neighbor had a kiln in her garage, and she had some clay, and she would make things and fire them. And she said, well, come over. And my mom and I went over, and my mom made a little owl, and I made a porcupine. I don't know if you can see him, but pretty primitive. But for a 10-year-old and not any instruction, I thought, well, I've got my start. From there, when I got into high school, my art teacher gave me a name of a man that was teaching sculpture, and he was from Egypt, up on Beverly Shores in Indiana, on the shores of Lake Michigan. And he had a big studio up there, and he taught mostly graduates, students. And she thought I must have been pretty good. But she said, why don't you go up and check this out? And my dad took me up there. So I ended up spending my summers, for 4 summers, working at the Naguib School of Sculpture under Mustafa Naguib. Then I also went into a lot of sculpture and clay work, pottery, when I went in through college. So I've had a lot of pottery and sculpture background. So I've been melting the two together, and one keeps pulling me, and then the other one keeps pulling me. So I can't only do sculpture, and I can't only do pottery. So I have a mixture of both. With those pottery skills and the sculpture background, I was able to put them together. This is one of my earlier pieces. It's a raku piece. Okay, so I'll hold it up, but it has this like U shape, right? This graceful curve to it. These are like one of the top sellers. I have all kinds of leaves. There's a ginkgo leaf. And then I started making, I revisited that shape. So here is a leaf bowl. And then the leaf bowl, it has changed, and each one is different. So I have another one here. So you can see the branch work is a little different. Even baby leaves, baby bowls, and philodendron leaves. Here's a pot. This is dry thrown, and I used to make these with long necks, and then they'd flop over and they'd become susicle. But then I started putting bird heads on them. So here's the evolution from pot to bird, and my faces have evolved. My teacher, Tom Munich, he would say, take your hunk of clay, and as you work with it, watch it. What is it doing? What's happening? You know, if you like throwing it, well, then throw it. He wasn't one of those that said no throwing clay. He encouraged it, and which was so great as a teacher to encourage you to do something that many teachers would say, I don't want any clay on the wall. Well, he didn't mind the disaster at all. And as I started slinging or throwing the clay and I'm watching it stretch, I noticed if I throw it straight down, it just becomes a lump, thin on the sides and thick in the middle. But if I sling it like snapping a bullwhip, it would drag it and become thin, all even. So as I took a fork and I would put it in a lump of clay and I just stab the ends of it, and if I throw a long string of it, you can see how the edge of this pot has these little, see those four? That was this fork. Look at how they've stretched and got long. These big ones are created that way as well, and the edges are also. So these are another top seller, and these are a really fun thing. I've made rabbits, and these are a couple, but I make them with the legs up and doing wild things. And what I'm trying to do to get the movement in the clay, I like the idea of keeping movement and spontaneity. Usually the rabbits you might see on somebody's front porch or cement, it's like symmetrical and the ears are exactly the same. I would rather have the wind blowing, or as he tosses his head, the hair would go, you know, the hair or the hare's ears in this case. So I get a lot of movement that way instead of just taking a bottle of clay or the colored slip, which is what they call an engobe, E-N-G-O-B-E. I mix my own, and then I have a palette, and I'll put it on. As I paint it on, I'll paint another color, and then I'll take my fingers in the water and I drag my fingers, I flop them, and I try to form the different textures. So this is a one also. It's a swan, but you can see how it gets soft, and then the little cuts through, you can see is a sgraffito where I've carved through after it's dried a little bit to show the main color body of the clay, which is a brown. Most of my work is in stoneware, but I do work in porcelain a lot when I'm doing pottery parts. And this is probably one of my earlier works, and I sold a lot of these up in Indiana. So I would have like this easy form here, and then here's my texture on the side of the pot that I've stretched, and then I would tie reeds on them. And I made some little porcelain colored leaves for the front. So all of this stuff the porcelain I've dyed myself, and I have, so it's called colored clay, and I put those in, and that's evolved. So when I throw now, I try to put some swirls to get that movement and that spontaneity into the piece. So this is stoneware, and you can tell the stoneware has the brown top, where porcelain, when the clay body's shown, you can see the white. I really love the nest. I have some little nest birds, and I'm a painter too, and I like to paint birds and nests and all kinds of birds and wildlife that way. And this is a vulture nest, and I'll see if I can turn it around here. But you can see all that branch work, all that branch work like I did on the oak bowls. Here's the branch work in this nest. Hello, my name is Janet Lesenby, and my business is Stretching Clay, LLC. And you can find me on the web as stretchingclay.com.
I am from Saginaw, Michigan. I studied art at Kendall College of Art and Design and also Royal College of Art in London. 15 years ago, I came here to Hendersonville. I love sculpture, but painting has always been my passion. And even when I was doing sculpture, I was also doing a little bit of painting. But I lived in New Orleans, and it was pretty incredible living there. And of course, the Hurricane Katrina was a very devastating, circumstance to go through. But coming here in Hendersonville and living in Western North Carolina has been, wonderful for me. I work primarily in acrylic paint, and I use paper and fabric as well as acrylic paint. My focus is always working from the figure. The figures that I paint and create are they're from my mind. I do not use any kind of photo reference. They're very emotive and spontaneous, and that is the goal. That is what I like to try and create. I consider myself a figurative expressionist. A figurative expressionist is someone who creates art inspired by the human figure, but with more of an emotive goal rather than a very realistic image. So I like to create figures that exude emotion, movement, things of that nature. I'm not trying to create a figure that looks exactly like someone that we know. I mean, I can easily sit down and draw a portrait of someone and have it look identical to that person. And I have done that many, many times in my life. And however, I find it to be even more challenging to create something that we're not already seeing or we haven't already seen. So I like to really come up with these unique images, and when I do that, I like the paper because I try to come up with these very, very unique compositions. I mean, to me, as an artist, the most powerful thing you can do in a painting is, of course, have an excellent composition. And so what I like to do with the paper is they're actually little directions. They're little arrows, and they're designed to lead your eye around the painting the way I want you to look at it, so that it has the maximum effect with the movement and the emotion. And it's really fun. So if you look at my paintings, you can see where the paper pieces kind of push your eye around the piece. And a lot of times I will start with an idea for a palette, just a certain group of colors that I think will be really interesting together. And I will just literally just do a gesture on the canvas. just an idea, and I will look at that and I'll go, okay, I'm going to go this direction, I'm going to go that direction, and I just create it and build it from there. And there's a lot of constructing, but there's also a lot of deconstructing that goes into my work. Where I will apply paper different places and then I tear it away until it's just the way I want it to be. And I do female figures, but I also have lots of male figures too. And I have lots of paintings where there's more than one figure and they're interacting with each other in the piece. I feel like today figurative art is becoming even more interesting and important because we are in a social climate right now, which is it's just very impactful on everyone. We're all very affected by all of the events swirling around us, and figurative art is a way of reaching out to people, human to human, as far as and just kind of documenting all of the emotional things that are happening in our world and happening around us. I like to do paintings that are happy. I feel like I like to create art that is joyful, that is interesting and inspiring and joyful. That's really my ultimate goal. My most recent piece, it's called Princess Electra. That one is really, that's a very big favorite of mine. I love that piece. I love how she is such a powerful looking female figure because she really does come across as very powerful. And I like the unusual color combinations. That's something that I really like to do too. Push the boundaries with color. And I also like a lot of the really intricate directional pieces that I have in there. I think it adds to almost feels like she's in the wind, and you can just feel all the swirling motion and tension around her. And so that's why I'm really happy with that piece. And it is a new piece. It's an honor. It's an honor for someone to purchase a painting. It's an honor, and it's a success, I feel like. And I'm happy, for that to happen. And I am a little sad to see it go, but it's okay because I know there are many more where that came from, although all my paintings are different and unique, and all the paintings that I'm offering at Art on Main are originals. And that's okay because I truly have a lot of work and I create so much. So, there are many more in my future. Hi, I'm Amy Castile from Standback Studio, and I hope that you'll visit me at www.standbackstudio.com. You can also find me at @standbackstudio on Instagram.
Western North Carolina, land of the sky. The great poet Carl Sandburg once said his home in Western North Carolina offered 1,000,000 miles of sky. From the mountains to the rivers, whether on an afternoon stroll down Main Street or a walk in the woods. It's easy to get lost in those 1,000,000 miles. I'm Barbara Ann Duncan with RE/MAX Results. Take my hand. I'll lead you home.
I'm originally from the Chicagoland area. I lived there for the first 50 years of my life, and I've been very, very fortunate in that I've lived in a lot of great places. When my husband retired, we were able to take our kids and move up to the mountains of Colorado. And we lived at about 9,000 feet, right outside the Rocky Mountains. So that was very lovely. And then recently we moved here because it was kind of, the altitude was getting to be a little bit much for us. And we kind of get the mountains, and yet at the same time, we can survive. And we also have a place in Naples, Florida. So we're by the ocean, and there's a lot of tropical beauty down there. So we are very fortunate people. We get to experience, we've been able to experience a lot. I'd like to think that I've always been an artist. When I was a kid, I was encouraged very much by my teachers. As early as like 10, 11 years old, I was doing like backdrops for the church plays and little things like that. I went to school. When I entered college, I had gone there, much to my family's disapproval, to become an artist, but I did go to a general liberal arts college. And I learned very early, after like the second semester, that I was going to be living in my family's basement forever, unless I had something that I could support myself with. So I ended up becoming a nurse, and I think that was a very good decision for me. I was a nurse for 40 years and just recently retired, as a matter of fact. So I've always done a lot of artwork. Painting is new to me. When I was up in the Rocky Mountains, I used to run through the woods and pick up driftwood, pick up little sticks, and I would carve them, make walking sticks out of them. I would burn wood and whatever. So I was always a little bit afraid of color, which is hard to believe when you see my work now. But I figured when I decided to start painting that I was going to just jump in head first and just go for it. And I do love the vibrant colors, and just, doing a lot of contrast with a lot of the colors, using complementary colors. So yeah, I've always drawn, but the black and white just doesn't have the same effect as introducing color. It's like one whole other element that you can add to the work to get emotion, and without having to be quite so literal. I still run every day, at least 10 miles a day. And while I'm running, a lot of times, I'm not running fast. I'm just kind of plodding along, but I'm out there for a few hours and there's nothing to do. So ideas pop into my head and I kind of explore them in my head. And I do kind of get an idea of what it is I'm trying to say, or what kind of, how I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And usually I'll come home and later in the evening, when everything else is done, I sketch things out. So I have tons and tons of sketchbooks with potential paintings. So I'll do them in either ink and watercolor, or sometimes just pencil. And then, when I'm ready to do a painting, I'll kind of skim through there, find one that I like, and use that as kind of an inspiration, kind of an idea to remind me of what it was I was trying to accomplish. The sketches rarely are the same as the painting, because the painting kind of evolves as I go along. But I do work in oil. I usually kind of go from the sketch to working with a oil wash and sketching an oil wash of what I'm going to do on the canvas. And then I go to using the oil. Now I do like a lot of texture, so a lot of times I'll add things to the paint. Sometimes product, sometimes I'll throw some sand in there, or I don't know, some cement if I really want to get something built up. So yeah, kind of, and that kind of evolves as I go along, depending on what it is I'm trying to do. A lot of times it's the emotion. Obviously there are some, everybody has different sides to themselves. Most of my work tends to be very happy, very whimsical. I like to think that they have kind of a musical element to them, that there is a lot of movement, that they, like a lot of abstractions, you go to pure color or you go to pure form. And for me, I need something that's a little more, I need something that I can, or that I feel that an audience can maybe identify with a little more. So, so there's the whole musical aspect in doing that. But then, I have a darker side too. And that's where you'll find some of, and I don't do a lot, I don't do a lot of those, but yes, there's a lot of things that, how can you help but be affected by the isolation that people are feeling now, or the changes in the world itself. The whole thing of being in a city and what that means these days, and what that means to people who don't live in the city. And so I have these things as I'm running that I'm thinking about things. So sometimes it's very political or very emotional, and sometimes it's just I'm feeling good. It's happy. Sometimes the cats are kind of symbolic for me. They kind of seem to have minds of their own, and they're really something that cannot be totally domesticated. And I kind of like that about them. And that's how they kind of fit into the paintings a lot of time. I've built throughout the years, I mean, there's a lot inside of me, and that's what the running helps with. And that's what the painting helps with, because it is a way to kind of express some of those things that you have inside of you and some of the things that you've seen and experienced throughout your life. So yeah, it's art to me is a very, very personal thing. My name is Linda McQuinn. You can find my work on McQuinnArtStudios.com on my webpage. And I also have a Facebook page, which is also LindaMcQuinnArtStudios.com.
Well, I am from Eubank, Kentucky, which is a small town in Pulaski County, south central Kentucky. And my family has lived in this area since the early 1800s. I have always been involved in music. I've played guitar since I was very young. My father played guitar and sung, played harmonica. Everybody in the family sung or played an instrument. So that was something that's always been a part of my life. The way I start out with a dulcimer, of course, is with the wood. And I have some standard models that I work with. So I have basically 4 standard models and then custom, which go any direction. But I generally start out with just a piece of rough lumber, and I'll resaw that and plane it and book match it. This is something that I started doing early on. That means that you cut the wood down the middle, you open it up like a book, and you glue it back together. That does 2 things. It stabilizes the wood, so you have grain going in 2 different directions. So it reduces the tendency of the wood to cup or bow. And I do that on the top and the back both, depending on what's going on in the shop. I may do a bunch of tops and backs if I'm working on a particular model. So I'll do the tops and the backs, and then I'll cut out peg head blanks. So, each different model, some have a flat peg head, some have a scrolled peg head. I'll cut those out. Slots are cut in those peg heads to receive the sides. And then that same piece of rough lumber, I'll cut the sides out, resaw them on the bandsaw so they're thin enough. And then I actually have 3 drum sanders that I'll run the sides and the tops and backs through to get them to thickness, which is usually about 1/8 of an inch. Maybe a little bit less on some woods. The sides are then bent by hand, and then the peg head, the sides, and the end block are all glued together. I do this differently than a lot of builders. A lot of builders glue the top and back to the peg head. I glue the sides first. I use the sides as a template to mark out the back and the top. Then the first thing is to glue the back on. Then somewhere in there, I'll do the fretboard, cut out of the same wood. or a contrasting wood, depending on the model. Put the frets in, do any inlay on the standard models that I do. It's at the position markers are either burned in, that would be for like a teardrop shaped dulcimer, which is where pricing starts, or they're mother of pearl dots, which is what I do for the hourglass shaped models. The fretboard is glued to the top, and then the top is glued to the body, and then the sanding starts. And the sanding will take about as long as everything else. But after everything's done, then I'll round over the edges, do the final sanding by hand, and then spray lacquer on the entire instrument. And usually that will be sealer and lacquer about 12 to 16 coats of instrument lacquer. So it's a special formulation, and I do my own mix, but it's a special formulation that actually gives with the wood, so it improves the tonal quality of the instrument. If you put something like polyurethane, it totally kills the sound, speaking from experience. After that, it's time to string it up and tune it up and hope it plays and sounds nice. And everything is done by hand. So I do not have any pre-cut or pre-prepared pieces that I buy somewhere else and then just assemble. Everything is made from scratch. And in some cases, it's made from a log from a tree I cut. So I have some in the shop right now that I'm working on that actually I cut the tree, milled the log, to the finished product. So that's one thing. The other thing is it's just me. So everything that is done to the dulcimer, it's me who does it. So I always say, if it's good, I get the credit. If it's bad, I get the blame. I'm Mark Eubank from Eubank, Kentucky, and my business is Mark Eubank Stringed Instruments. I specialize in dulcimers, and you can find those. Actually, the easiest way to find them is email me at markestrings, all lowercase, at yahoo.com, and I will send you pictures of what I have available at the time.
Well, I have grown up in northern New Jersey, so I'm one of those Yankees that came and stayed because it's so beautiful. Traveled abroad in England and Scotland for a time and was studying actually sheep and wool production. So I had an interest in fiber for a long time, even before college. I learned to spin on a drop spindle in high school in an art class. And then I got my own spinning wheel. And so then the natural progression of the interest in fiber went on to weaving. So I start out with all of my yarn is natural or white color. And I use a variety of textures because I'm really interested in texture, not just a flat surface, but when the texture varies, the light kind of gets captured in different ways, even if it's just a solid white piece. So after I begin with the yarn that is off of big cones that I get from my supplier, big cones of yarn, I measure it out about 18 yards at a time. And then before it goes on the loom, that's the point at which I dye the yarn. So I lay out the yarns on my dye surface and I put together the dye, which is powdered Procyon dyes, which are commercial dyes. And then I use sodium alginate, which kind of is a thickener. I think it's made from seaweed, but it thickens it. So it's like a paste. And I've got my little containers of dyes, and I use sponges to apply the dye to the yarn, which has been dampened. So the yarn is wet or moist. and then the dye gets applied in sections according to whatever my design for that group of pieces is going to be. After the yarn has been dyed and has sat overnight, I come back and I boil a big pot of water, like a canning pot, big pot. And the yarn is thrown into that pot of boiling water, and it sets the color into the yarn. It heat sets it. So after it sits in that pot for a little while, I fish it out and I take it to my big farm sink and I rinse it out, rinse it until no dye comes out. And then the yarns is laid over a drying rack. Then once they're dried, then the yarns go on my loom, which is actually what I'm doing now. I'm getting the loom set up with the yarn. And I go and I tie on 220 ends to the warp that was left before. And then I'll begin to wind that on. Once I'm ready to weave, I have, in 18 yards, I've got about 5 or 6 different pieces that I can create from that length of yarn. And I can use different colors in the weft. And the weft is what crosses the warp. This is the shuttle that carries the little bobbin of yarn back and forth across the warp, and then that creates the fabric. So I can alternate different colors of weft, and that gives me a, slightly different combinations of color, and the pieces can look a little bit different from each other. So from there, after I've woven it all, I cut it off the loom and I either tie fringe or stitch the edges, the raw edges, and take it and wash everything. I wash that fabric in the machine, washed and dried, before I begin to iron it and create the garments, whatever they be, whether it be a shawl or a vest or a jacket. And I don't know if you can see the color, how it kind of goes from one color into the next. And it's not just a flat color. The color moves. And so that to me is the exciting part about dyeing my own yarns. I can really have more control over the final piece and how it's going to look, have more design options. And then the designs, the 2 most popular styles I have are what I'm wearing now, this with the long pieces, the shawl, and then I also have a little twist shawl where it's got the little twist in the front. Okay, and it goes on like a poncho, has this little point at the back and the twist at the front. And it goes on over your head and it just sets, nice and easy. It's for people that don't want to worry about how to wrap something. And those have become my 2 best sellers, and for years, even before I did the dyeing. Those were great designs. And then I merged into doing more constructed pieces like the jacket that I showed you and some of the vests and just things that you have to actually cut your fabric and then put it back together in a different way. So I created my own patterns for those items and taught myself what was needed as far as the sewing. So I'm a basic sewer, but I've learned a lot. And I think that's been rewarding for me to push myself into those different categories of construction. Well, they're all like my babies. They're works of art. But probably the jackets right now are like the one I showed you. This was This was a winner, and it has this little button on there, which is a fun little accessory, which is actually just a pin. And it can come off and be used in different ways. But this jacket and some of the others are probably involve a lot more work than the other pieces, not just in the planning of the colors, but in the construction. There's a lot of work in the construction. So probably I'm most proud of that. I wonder sometimes myself, why do I do this, especially during these difficult times? I'm just driven. I think it keeps me sane to be able to create and keep my hands busy and my mind active. I think it's just a part of me. And if I stopped, I'm not sure what I would do. I would have to find some other way to create.
Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainnc.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainnc.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual Fine Art and Fine Craft Fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual Fine Art and Fine Craft Fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainnc.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual Fine Art and Fine Craft Fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainnc.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual Fine Art and Fine Craft Fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainnc.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual Fine Art and Fine Craft Fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainnc.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual Fine Art and Fine Craft Fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainnc.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual Fine Art and Fine Craft Fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainnc.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in to our virtual show, Art on Main, the virtual fine art and fine craft fair. Please go visit our artists in their virtual showrooms by going to www.artonmainNC.com. They'll be in their showrooms starting at 1 p.m. and we hope to see you there.